I'll try to
okay, fine, right.
Including the complex one around price of oil. And I will say for all of you who would like to see a transformation, I think Europe did a fantastic transformation to the diesel vehicle in 10 years. Europe today is over 50% diesel. It was an amazing transformation that really had products, vehicle technology, and policy well integrated. And that's what I'd like to see in all of this evolution. And I do believe it's a portfolio. I think the idea that one thing is going to replace the other overnight is not quite very practical, but a portfolio set of solutions is, I think, what we're aiming for in the world. And if you want to buy a great vehicle, it's amazing. Volkswagen will sell you a vehicle for $15,000 to $20,000. It'll get 50 miles to the gallon. It performs perfectly. It has a range of 600 miles or more per tank full, and it reduces greenhouse gas emissions by 30% today. So I think there is something we can all do right away, which is go out, buy a diesel, be highly efficient, and get a renewable fuel from Brazil to put in it. Now, let's go to the questions. The first one was trade barriers. How do I view trade barriers going forward? It is a worry that I have. There's no question that today our renewable diesel or cane diesel in Brazil can be exported without any additional duty other than fuel duty that other fuels have around the world. There is no trade barrier today. That would be the same for our jet fuel or any other product we make or would make here in Brazil. I worry that at some point, if the volume of those products start to increase and somebody sees a threat around the world, that we could see trade barriers go up. So that's a concern, and I don't think we could predict what that future might be. Around IP, do I worry about intellectual property in Brazil? I do. I worry about intellectual property anywhere we participate around the world. And our focus on protecting it is we're doing the best we can with local registration. We're doing the best we can with a local legal framework. But most importantly, the product is distinctive. So one of the things that's important about intellectual property for us is that the product is easily identified. It's not like it's a different variety of ethanol. It is a completely different molecule that you know came from a different process and a different technology. So we do have mechanisms in place to try to protect it, but I do worry about it, and I don't think there is any guarantee other than innovation. Continue to innovate your way out or into new IP. On the question of the price of oil, I think that's a major issue, and the way I like to think of it is this. Most countries, so let's step back and say that every barrel of oil isn't at the same cost, and that most new barrels of oil cost significantly more than every old barrel of oil. About the only place in the world that can extract oil for a very low price being $20 a barrel or less, is really the Middle East. And that is the absolute cost of recovery. What we have to consider is that there is a cost above recovery called social programs. And most places in the world that have cheap oil have significant social programs that are now funded by the barrel of oil. So you could think about some of the lowest cost producers in the world actually have a pretty high hurdle rate or minimum price per barrel to fund their social programs. And most of those governments worry deeply about social unrest. And so if you think about what the cost is at that level, it's more like $60 a barrel. And you think about the cost of some of the new production where there's abundant oil, and abundant oil, I think, meaning oil for the next 20 or so years, not for our lifetime, or at least my children's lifetime, is very costly to produce.
So biofuels will create a revolution in Saudi Arabia because the social programs will collapse.
I think that there's a long need for uses of oil that are a lot higher value than transportation fuel, whether jet, whether for ships, whether for vehicles, whether for gasoline.
Which was a point that Mendeleev made in the 19th century. He said this stuff is too valuable to burn.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. I think the last question on the list was about lithium mining and that as an extractive industry.
Yeah, actually, the issue of lithium supply has been brought up before, and last time we went through it, this is not one of the things we need to worry about, at least for almost 100 years. The calculations that we went through, I'll just give you the summary, that it takes about 0.2 of a kilogram of lithium equivalent to make 1 kilowatt-hour energy. And if you look at the available supply, something like, I think it's 14 billion kg, that was enough to make somewhere around 33 billion full hybrids or 6-7 billion plug-in hybrids and so forth. And today the population of vehicles on the road is, of course, somewhere around 800 million. So from an availability point of view, it's not an issue. I think your point is right in terms of the concentration of lithium. By the way, Brazil is number 5, US is number 6, and I think Canada is next. But it is distributed, and there are mining methods and techniques in place. It is a long lead item, but at the same time, I think the scale at which this transition is going to happen will provide enough lead time for that infrastructure to be put in place.
Right. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I'll take 2 or 3 more questions from the floor, and then we'll close up. Gentleman over there, another one with a beard.
I think I need to grow a beard.
I think you do.
Claudinei Andreoli da Embrapa. Esta é uma questão que todo mundo busca, cientista busca, as empresas buscam. Qual é o combustível do futuro? Entretanto, as estatísticas internacionais, tanto do Departamento de Energia dos Estados Unidos, como da Agência Internacional, mostra que em 2030 teremos 55% de aumento de energia fóssil. E a energia renovável representará apenas 9% do total de energia. Então, como vamos mudar esse drive-in de energia fóssil para energia renovável?
Right here in back.
Okay.
Right here. Okay.
Gentleman over there.
Yeah. Mr. Valseca from São Carlos Federal University, Brazil. Well, according to Mr. Plinio Nastari, I believe in the future in an electric car moved by ethanol electricity. Okay? If you consider the sugarcane like an electricity unit, you can take hydrogen from ethanol, from vinasse, and you can generate electricity from bagasse. The question is, what about the fuel cells technology to take electricity from ethanol? We know that we can take technology to take electricity from methanol, but not ethanol. I would like to know what about the technology to take electricity from ethanol. Thank you.
Okay. Gentleman there.
I like to have your opinion about trucks. We are talking about personal cars, but I mean, the world needs trucks, and electric trucks, that's not something I can think is possible to have, but how about your gentlemen? Is that on your agenda too?
Okay. Right.
Hello.
I think 3 questions is enough at the moment. So I'll take them in reverse order. Presumably, this technology can apply to, either of these technologies can apply to trucks.
Well, yeah, I think that the misconception is that because we have seen electric prototype cars always being these tiny little cars, we assume that you cannot make big cars. And I heard the gentleman saying before, what happens if we wake up and there's no SUVs? The plug-in hybrid drivetrain we use is actually coming out from a military vehicle originally in the US, which were a large sort of Jeep truck vehicle. Our vehicle has 400 horsepower, 900 pound-foot of torque, or 1,300 Newton meter. That's pretty much the same as a large V12 Mercedes engine. So there's absolutely no problem to make a truck with our powertrain. There's no problem to make an SUV that can carry 7 or 8 people. In fact, our powertrain is running around in a large converted GM truck that weighs 7,000 pounds right now and performs quite well. You'll easily be able to go over 100 miles per hour, over 160 kilometers an hour if you need to. So in terms of converting making a plug-in hybrid into a truck is not a problem. I think a pure electric car may still be somewhat an issue because you drain, obviously, the battery extremely fast. The point with a plug-in hybrid is that once the battery is drained, you generate electricity on board the truck for longer trips. So at this point in time, no problem to make a truck with a plug-in hybrid drivetrain.
Okay. I think we did address the fuel cell question earlier, so I might pass on that one and go straight to perhaps what is the fundamental question of the whole meeting, which is how can you get there from here? The projections are correct. The fuel of the future is actually oil. Sorry, if the projections are correct, the fuel of the future is oil. How do you stop that happening? How do you introduce one or other of these technologies and make it dominant? If you could just summarize that point in maybe 30 seconds each, and then we'll bring the proceedings to a close.
Yeah, I'll start.
You start, yes.
I think one of the issues in terms of penetration of electrification has been the cost of the battery, because it makes up maybe about 5 to 10% of the vehicle cost for a non-plug-in hybrid, 15 to 30% for a plug-in, and somewhat higher for a full electric vehicle. However, I think there is hope, and that's why I say I see a line of sight where we will be able to make that transition. Just to give you a historical perspective, the lithium-ion battery cost in terms of dollars per kilowatt hour have come down by a factor of 13 to 14 over the last 17 to 18 years since it was first commercialized, which is unheard of in the battery industry. And not that they will continue on that same path, but I'm pretty confident that over the next 5 to 10 years, they will come down by another factor of 2 to 4. And when that happens, a factor of 2 will probably be enough to proliferate these and to rapidly accelerate the penetration.
Well, I think it's clear that for the first time, I think in the world, we're seeing, it doesn't matter what country or what religion or what political area you're in, I think everybody agrees we have to do something about our environment and about the future on the globe we're going to live in or in the world we're going to live in. And I think that alone has driven some of the most influential governments in the world to take steps to ensure that we are going to try to develop cleaner energy in the future. That is one side of it. I think the other side is that I think it's all a matter of consumer demand. And I think that the consumer is starting to demand cleaner energy, that we develop cleaner energy. And they understand that it's going to be an initial cost to that. Any new technology we ever had, just think about when the flat screen TV came out. It was, unreachable for most people. But any new technology will be expensive, but once it gets into the market, once the demand is there, and the point with green technology is that it's a win-win for everybody in the end of the day, because we get what it is we want, which is power for all the things that we need, and it's green. So it is something that's going to be promoted automatically in the world right now, probably most by the richest countries in the world first, and then it will trickle down. It will take a time, it will not be overnight, but I think we're probably in the midst of the biggest revolution that we have had so far in the change of how we develop energy.
And the last word to Mr. Melo.
I agree. I mean, I'd just like to say that we've been talking about the solution. I believe that getting the problem right is actually more important than the solution. And I'd say that the problem I'm focused on is climate change. And I don't think we have time to wait. I think that if we're going to address climate change, we have to start today, and we have to make the biggest impact possible today. And so with that, I'd say the way to get adoption to happen as quickly as possible is no compromise. The consumer deserves to get the performance they deserve from their vehicle and the product they use, and they need to do it in a way that's environmentally friendly. And I think the second way is economics. So no compromise products that are economically competitive with the alternative, so that we can start making a difference in climate change now, not 20 or 30 years from now. And the last point would be, and I'm really enthusiastic that most predictions, as a matter of fact, all predictions,